Close your eyes and let yourself drift away to a place where turquoise waters meet endless blue skies. A place where time moves slower and the warmth of the sun kisses your skin. Tonight, we journey together to the Virgin Islands, a scattered collection of tropical jewels floating peacefully in the Caribbean Sea. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of the world, looking out over an archipelago of approximately 90 small islands, islets, cays, and rocks. These islands stretch from west to east for about 60 miles, suspended between the vast North Atlantic Ocean and the gentle Caribbean Sea. They rest about 40 to 50 miles east of Puerto Rico, positioned perfectly along the Anegada Passage, a major channel where the Atlantic and Caribbean waters meet and mingle in an endless dance. The islands you're envisioning are split between two peaceful territories: the British Virgin Islands to the north and east, and the United States Virgin Islands to the south and west. Together, their combined land spans approximately 195 square miles of paradise. Though much of their true beauty lies beneath the waves, in coral gardens and underwater valleys that have existed for thousands of years. Let your mind settle on the three main islands of the U.S. Virgin Islands: St. Croix, the largest at 84 square miles; St. Thomas with its dramatic peaks; and St. John, where 2/3 of the island rests protected as national parkland. Around these three sisters, 50 smaller islets and cays, the seascape like scattered emeralds on blue velvet. The capital, Charlotte Amalie, rests on St. Thomas, its harbor welcoming ships just as it has for centuries. These islands are actually the peaks of ancient submerged mountains, rising majestically from the ocean floor. On St. Thomas, Crown Mountain reaches toward the sky at 1,556 feet. On St. John, Bordeaux Mountain climbs to 1,277 feet. And on St. Croix, Mount Eagle rises to 1,088 feet in the north, while the southern part of the island opens into a gentle, rolling plain that seems to breathe with each passing trade wind. Long before any Europeans set sail across the Atlantic, these islands were home to peaceful peoples. The Siboney Indians may have been among the first, arriving as far back as 1500 BC in seasonal fishing camps, though permanent settlement came much later. Around the year 100 BC, or perhaps 200 AD, the Arawak people arrived from South America, likely traveling in dugout canoes with sails, guided by stars and ocean currents. They called these islands home for centuries, creating pottery, tending gardens, and living in harmony with the rhythms of island life. Archaeological traces of their presence have been discovered around Belmont and Smuggler's Cove, in the remains of shell middens and fragments of beautifully crafted pottery. By the 15th century, the Carib people arrived from the Lesser Antilles. More militant than their predecessors, they displaced the Arawak and established themselves throughout the islands, naming St. Croix II. They fished the abundant waters, hunted, and defended their island homes with bows and poisoned arrows. Then came November 1493, when history shifted forever. Christopher Columbus, on his second voyage to the New World with 17 ships and nearly 1,500 men, spotted these islands. On November 14th, his fleet dropped anchor at what is now Salt River Bay on St. Croix. Columbus sent a landing party of about 24 men ashore to the island he named Santa Cruz, meaning Holy Cross, seeking fresh water to replenish their dwindling supplies. Upon entering a deserted Carib village, they found a small group of Taino captives. As they were returning to their ship, they encountered a Carib war party in a canoe. A skirmish erupted near what is now called the Cape of Arrows. Arrows flew, muskets fired, and one of Columbus's men was wounded by an arrow. He would die several days later. This was the first documented violent encounter between Europeans and Native Americans, a moment that would echo through history. Impressed by the beauty of the island chain spread before him, Columbus named them Las Once Mil Virgenes, the 11,000 virgins, after the legend of Saint Ursula and her 11,000 virgin martyrs. Though the actual number of islands was much closer to 110 than 11,000, the romantic name endured, eventually shortened simply to the Virgin Islands. And so the story of these islands truly began, a story written in ocean spray and tropical breezes, in the songs of the bananaquit birds and the gentle lapping of waves against ancient coral reefs. For many decades after Columbus departed, the islands drifted in and out of various European hands, a chess game played across the Atlantic by kingdoms hungry for new territories. But it was the Danes who would leave the most lasting mark on these sun-drenched shores. In 1672, after decades of failed attempts plagued by hurricanes, disease, and the harsh realities of colonial life, the Danish West India Company finally succeeded in settling St. Thomas. 190 souls set sail from Denmark, a motley collection of convicts, prostitutes, indentured servants, and company officials seeking fortune in a new world. By journey's end, only 104 remained alive. 77 had perished during the crossing, and 9 had escaped into the unknown. But those who survived planted the Danish flag and began to build. The Danes claimed St. John in 1694, though British opposition from nearby Tortola initially prevented permanent settlement. Diplomatic negotiations eventually smoothed relations, and Danish colonists arrived to transform the forested hillsides into terraced plantations. Then, in 1733, the Danish West Indian Company purchased St. Croix from France for a sum that would bind these 3 islands, St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, together as the Danish West Indies, a Caribbean colony under Northern European rule. The islands quickly revealed their true value. The volcanic soil, the tropical sun, and the reliable rains created perfect conditions for one crop above all others: sugar. By the mid-18th century, St. Croix had been carefully surveyed and divided into plantations of 150 and 300 acres. The Danish vision was methodical and ambitious. They created 9 administrative quarters across the island and welcomed settlers from other Caribbean islands: Dutch, English, Scottish, Irish, and Spanish planters who saw opportunity in this new Danish territory. The sugar plantations transformed the landscape into an industrial marvel. At the peak of production between 1795 and 1800, over 30,000 acres of St. Croix were under sugar cultivation. The island earned a new name, the Garden of the West Indies. Nearly 150 sugar mills dotted the countryside, great stone windmills with their arms turning slowly in the trade winds, and animal-powered mills where oxen walked in endless circles. More than 115 of these mills still stand today, silent monuments to an era of both prosperity and profound suffering. The wealth generated was extraordinary, but it came at an incalculable human cost. The plantations required vast amounts of labor, and that labor came in chains from Africa. In 1785, the Danish government signed a treaty with the Dutch of Brandenburg, allowing them to establish a slave trading post on St. Thomas. Ships arrived carrying enslaved people who had survived the horrors of the Middle Passage, only to face backbreaking work in cane fields under the unrelenting Caribbean sun. By the early 19th century, the population imbalance told the story of this plantation economy. In 1803, St. Croix was home to approximately 30,000 people. Of these, 26,500 were enslaved Africans laboring on 218 plantations. The ratio of enslaved to free on some islands was staggering. On St. John by 1770, enslaved people outnumbered Europeans 19-1. On St. Croix in 1815, the ratio reached 135-1. These numbers represent not just an economic system, but countless individual lives lived in bondage, countless families separated, countless dreams deferred. But resistance flickered like flame in the darkness. In 1733, on the island of St. John, 150 enslaved people, primarily a Kanakwamu people from the Gold Coast of Africa, in what is now Ghana, rose up in rebellion. They captured the fort at Coral Bay and took control of most of the island. For 6 months, they held their freedom, until several hundred French and Swiss troops arrived from Martinique in April of 1734. The rebellion was finally declared ended in late August 1734, but its memory lived on, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to accept chains. The golden age of sugar brought magnificent architecture to towns like Christiansted and Frederiksted on St. Croix, and to Charlotte Amalie on St. Thomas. Grand colonial buildings rose along cobblestone streets. Merchants and planters built fortunes on sugar, rum, and molasses shipped back to Europe. But even at its peak, the seeds of decline were being sown across the Atlantic. In the fields of Europe where a different crop, the sugar beet, was beginning to grow, and in the hearts of people who were beginning to question the morality of slavery itself. Let the years wash over you like gentle waves, decades passing like the seasons, and settle your mind on the morning of July 3rd, 1848. The sun rose over St. Croix as it always had, painting the sky in shades of coral and gold. But this day would be different. This day would change everything. By the early morning hours, nearly 9,000 enslaved people had gathered outside Fort Frederick in Frederiksted. They came from plantations across the island, answering the call of conch shells blown in the darkness and estate bells rung as signals of uprising. They had heard the news from neighboring islands, that the British had freed enslaved people in Tortola and the other British Virgin Islands back in 1838. They knew that freedom was possible, and they refused to wait any longer. Leading them was a man named Moses Gottlieb, known to history as General Budho. With courage born of desperation and hope, he delivered an ultimatum to the Danish authorities. Declare all enslaved people free by noon, or the town of Frederiksted would burn. The crowd stood firm, thousands of voices united in their demand for freedom. Governor Peter von Scholten was not at his office that morning, but when word reached him of the gathering and the ultimatum, he made a decision that would echo through history. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 hours past the deadline, he stood before the assembled thousands and declared those immortal words, "All unfree in the Danish West Indies are from today emancipated." This was 17 years before slavery would be abolished on the American mainland with the passage of the 13th Amendment. The Virgin Islands had written their freedom into being through the power of collective action and unwavering courage. Today, every July 3rd, the islands celebrate Emancipation Day, the most important public holiday for Virgin Islanders. A day when conch shells sound across the islands once more, not as calls to rebellion, but as celebrations of freedom won. Yet the path after emancipation was not smooth. Though Governor von Scholten had granted freedom, he lacked the authority to do so, and his bold action cost him dearly. The Danish crown was displeased. Slaveholders who had lost their labor force were furious. Von Scholten was forced to resign and return to Denmark, where he faced court-martial and was found guilty of dereliction of duty. Though his conviction was later reversed by the Supreme Court in 1852, and though Denmark ultimately confirmed the legality of his Emancipation Declaration that same year, his personal sacrifice stood as testimony to the moment when one man chose humanity over authority. The plantation economy, already struggling, began its final decline. The exhausted soil could no longer sustain intensive sugar cultivation. Competition from European sugar beets had undermined Caribbean sugar prices. The newly freed people found little had changed in their daily struggles. They still worked the same fields, though now for wages so meager they could barely survive. A system of contract labor replaced slavery, bringing an estimated 10,000 workers to the islands between 1849 and 1917, most from Barbados and other Lesser Antilles islands where labor was abundant but opportunities were scarce. Denmark found itself burdened with islands that were no longer profitable. As early as the 1860s, Danish politicians began quietly discussing the possibility of selling the territory. The United States, meanwhile, had been eyeing these islands with increasing interest, particularly as naval strategy became more important to American security. The first serious attempt came in 1867, the same year the United States purchased Alaska from Russia. Secretary of State William Seward negotiated a treaty with Denmark to purchase St. Thomas and St. John for $7.5 million in gold. The islanders themselves voted on the proposal, 1,244 in favor, only 22 opposed. The Danish parliament approved the sale, but the United States Senate, embroiled in bitter political feuds with President Andrew Johnson, never brought the treaty to a vote. The islands remained Danish, and another half-century would pass before the transaction finally occurred. World War I changed everything. The United States grew increasingly concerned about German ambitions in the Caribbean, particularly after rumors surfaced that Germany might seek to acquire the Danish islands if Denmark fell to German control. The Panama Canal, which had opened in 1914, made the Caribbean more strategically vital than ever before. To protect this crucial waterway connecting the Atlantic and Pacific, the United States needed a strong naval presence in the region, and St. Thomas Harbor was perfect for that purpose. In 1916, after 50 years of sporadic negotiations, Denmark and the United States finally reached an agreement. The treaty was signed on August 4, 1916, and ratified by the United States Senate that September. On March 31, 1917, the transfer became official. Denmark received $25 million in gold coin, approximately $614 million in today's currency. The Danish flag came down, the American flag rose in its place, and the Danish West Indies became the United States Virgin Islands. The residents found themselves in a peculiar position. They had been granted American nationality, but not citizenship, not yet. That wouldn't come until 1927, a full decade after the transfer. And the right to elect their own governor. That would take even longer, not arriving until 1970. The Navy administered the islands as a military asset until 1931, when jurisdiction finally transferred to the Department of the Interior, and so these islands passed from one flag to another, carrying with them centuries of stories, of indigenous peoples and European colonizers, of enslaved Africans who fought for freedom, of sugar mills turning slowly in the trade winds, of negotiations conducted in distant capitals by men who had never felt Caribbean sand beneath their feet. Yet through all these changes, the islands themselves remained. Volcanic peaks rising from the sea, beaches of white sand and black, coral reefs teeming with life, and trade winds that blow as steadily as time itself. Close your eyes and drift forward through time, watching the decades pass like clouds across the endless Caribbean sky. Let your mind rest on the year 1952. When a man named Lawrence Spelman Rockefeller sailed through these turquoise waters and felt something stir in his soul. Lawrence was the grandson of John D. Rockefeller Sr., America's first billionaire, but he had inherited more than just wealth. He had inherited a passion for conservation. He had already helped establish Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming alongside his father and brothers. Now, as he gazed upon the pristine beaches and lush green hillsides of St. John, he saw something extraordinary. An opportunity to blend conservation with responsible tourism, to prove that protecting nature and welcoming visitors could coexist in harmony. By the end of 1952, Lawrence had purchased the Keneal Bay Plantation through his company, Rock Resorts. But his vision extended far beyond a single resort. Over the next few years, he quietly acquired nearly 5,000 acres across St. John, more than half the island's total land area. These weren't just any acres. They encompassed white sand beaches, coral reefs teeming with tropical fish, forested mountains where ruins of old sugar plantations stood silently among the trees, and bays so clear you could see 30 feet down through water as transparent as air. Then, in 1956, Lawrence made an extraordinary gift. He donated all 5,000 acres to the United States government, asking nothing in return except that this land be preserved as a national park for future generations. On December 1st, 1956, two events occurred simultaneously, carefully coordinated to mark a new chapter in Caribbean conservation. The Virgin Islands National Park officially opened as the 29th site in the national park system, and the Keneal Bay Resort welcomed its first guests. The resort had been designed to blend seamlessly with its environment, using local materials, preserving natural vegetation, and keeping the buildings low and unobtrusive so that nature always took center stage. The park encompasses not just the land, but the waters as well. In 1962, the boundaries expanded to include 5,650 acres of submerged lands, coral reefs and seagrass beds where sea turtles glide and rays float like ghosts through shafts of sunlight. Today, approximately 60% of St. John lies within the park boundaries, protected in perpetuity. Over 7,000 acres of pristine tropical ecosystem, frozen in time, waiting for visitors who come to snorkel in crystal bays, hike ancient plantation trails, or simply sit on beaches where the only sound is the gentle whisper of trade winds through palm fronds. Lawrence Rockefeller's vision of ecotourism, a term that wouldn't gain widespread use for another 30 years, set a precedent not just for the Virgin Islands, but for the entire Caribbean. He believed that people needed to experience nature's beauty firsthand to understand why it was worth protecting. His resorts, including Little Dick's Bay, which he opened on Virgin Gorda in the British Virgin Islands in 1964, demonstrated that luxury and environmental responsibility weren't opposites, but partners in a dance as old as the islands themselves. Now let your mind settle on the people who call these islands home. The current population of the United States Virgin Islands hovers around 87,000 souls, based on the 2020 census. Though this represents a significant decrease from previous decades, as hurricanes and economic challenges have prompted many to seek opportunities elsewhere. The islands are a beautiful tapestry of cultures. Approximately 71% of the population traces their ancestry to Africa, descendants of those who survived slavery and claimed their freedom in 1848. English has been the predominant language since 1917, when the islands became American territory, but the linguistic landscape is far richer than that simple fact suggests. About 30% of the population speaks a language other than English at home. Spanish echoes through the streets, particularly on St. Croix, where approximately 17% of the population speaks it. Many of them Puerto Ricans who arrived during the 1930s, 40s, and 50s seeking work. They brought their culture, their music, their food, and wove it seamlessly into the existing Crucian culture, creating something new and vibrant. There's also Virgin Islands Creole English, known locally simply as dialect, which arose from the complex interactions between Dutch, English, French, Danish colonizers, and enslaved Africans from many different regions and language groups. Each island has its own variation. The Crucian dialect spoken on St. Croix differs subtly from what you hear on St. Thomas or St. John. For centuries, there was also Nederhollands, a Dutch-based Creole that emerged on plantations in the late 17th century. German missionaries even translated the Bible into this language. But with emancipation and the influx of English speakers from other Caribbean islands, Nederhollands slowly faded. The last native speaker passed away in 1987, and with them, an entire language slipped into history, leaving behind only written records and linguistic ghosts. The median age on the islands is approximately 46 years. These are islands where elders are respected, where stories pass from generation to generation, where memory runs deep. The literacy rate stands at just under 95%, and the University of the Virgin Islands, with campuses on both St. Thomas and St. Croix, offers education all the way through doctoral degrees, ensuring that young Virgin Islanders can pursue their dreams without leaving their island home. And so the islands continue their eternal rhythm, waves rolling in from the Atlantic, trade winds bending the palm trees, morning light turning the water from deep blue to brilliant turquoise, and the descendants of many peoples, African, European, Caribbean, living together on these small volcanic peaks that rise so bravely from the sea. Let your breathing slow, feel the warmth of the tropical sun on your skin, and turn your attention now to the creatures who share these islands with their human residents. For this is not just a place of human history, but a living ecosystem where hundreds of species make their home beneath the endless Caribbean sky. Of all the land mammals that walk these volcanic slopes, only 6 species are truly native, and remarkably, all 6 are bats. The greater bulldog bat, Antillean fruit-eating bat, red fruit bat, Brazilian free-tailed bat, velvety free-tailed bat, and Jamaican fruit bat are the island's only indigenous terrestrial mammals. These nocturnal creatures emerge at dusk from caves and hollow trees, performing vital work that often goes unnoticed. They pollinate flowers that bloom in the night, they disperse seeds across the hillsides, and they consume countless mosquitoes and other insects, keeping the balance that allows both humans and other creatures to thrive. But the islands are far from empty of other mammals. White-tailed deer, brought to the islands in the late 1700s and again in 1937 under a federal wildlife restoration program, now roam freely through the forests. The small Asian mongoose, introduced in the 1800s with the well-intentioned but misguided hope of controlling rat populations, has instead become an ecological challenge. The mongoose hunts by day while rats emerge at night. They never met as planned, and the mongoose instead devastated populations of ground-nesting birds, lizards, and their eggs, reaching densities of 2 animals per acre across the territory. In the waters surrounding the islands, life explodes in kaleidoscopic abundance. More than 500 fish species have been recorded in these crystalline depths. Parrotfish scraping algae from coral with their beak-like teeth, hogfish changing colors as they age, butterfly fish flashing brilliant yellows and blacks, squirrelfish with their enormous eyes adapted for hunting in dim reef crevices, and barracuda hanging motionless in the current like silver arrows waiting to strike. The coral reefs themselves are cities of life, hosting sponges, sea urchins, starfish, anemones, and countless invertebrates in an underwater dance that has continued for millennia. Above the waterline, the bird life is equally rich. 144 species of birds call these islands home or pass through during migration. The bananaquit, known locally as the sugar bird, flits from flower to flower on its curved beak, sipping nectar and occasionally stealing sugar from outdoor tables. Its bright yellow breast and cheerful presence have made it beloved across the islands. Pelicans patrol the coastlines, folding their wings and plunging like missiles into the sea when they spot fish below. 3 species of hummingbirds hover on wings that beat too fast for human eyes to follow: the green-throated carib, the Antillean-crested hummingbird, and the Puerto Rican mango. On tiny Saba Island, just 3 miles south of Charlotte Amalie, more than 30,000 sooty terns gather in the largest seabird colony in the entire Virgin Islands archipelago. The island also hosts roseate terns, an endangered species whose numbers have dwindled worldwide, along with brown nadas, bridled terns, and other seabirds whose cries fill the air like voices from the ancient past. During winter months, from November through February, Francis Bay on St. John becomes a haven for birdwatchers, with more than 160 species passing through on their seasonal migrations. The island's reptiles are equally fascinating. Green iguanas, growing up to 6 feet from head to tail, sun themselves on rocks and in tree branches, looking like visitors from the age of dinosaurs. The leatherback turtle, the largest turtle species in the world, comes ashore to lay eggs on quiet beaches under cover of darkness. Green turtles and hawksbill turtles glide through the seagrass beds, ancient mariners who have navigated these waters for millions of years. St. Croix is home to several endemic species found nowhere else on Earth. The St. Croix ground lizard and St. Croix anole have evolved in isolation, becoming unique expressions of life adapted to this particular volcanic island. Now let your mind drift forward in time to September of 2017, when nature demonstrated its awesome and terrifying power. On September 6th, Hurricane Irma, a Category 5 storm with sustained winds reaching 178 miles per hour, passed directly over St. Thomas and St. John. The storm was one of the most powerful Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded. Trees that had stood for decades were uprooted in minutes. Roofs peeled away like paper. The 4th floor of Schneider Regional Medical Center on St. Thomas collapsed. Power lines came down across the islands. The hospital's electronic medical record system was destroyed, and for weeks, doctors and nurses worked from medical tents pitched in the parking lot, treating patients by flashlight and running on generators. Then, just 13 days later, before the islands had time to even begin recovering, Hurricane Maria arrived. On September 20th, this second Category 5 hurricane struck St. Croix directly before moving across Puerto Rico. St. Thomas and St. John, already devastated, were battered again by flooding and mudslides. The back-to-back storms created a disaster of almost unimaginable proportions. Homes were destroyed, infrastructure crumbled. The power grid, already crippled by Irma, was demolished. It would take 4 months to restore electricity to most residents, and some areas remained dark much longer. Communication systems failed, Cell towers toppled, internet connections vanished, and for days, residents had no way to contact the outside world or even to know if their loved ones on other islands had survived. And yet, in the aftermath, something remarkable happened. Communities came together. Neighbors helped neighbors clear debris and patch roofs. The Navy sent ships, the USS Wasp, USS Kearsarge, USS Oak Hill, and helicopters evacuated 1,900 people to safety. Federal emergency workers arrived. Volunteers from across the United States mainland came to help. Slowly, painfully, the islands began to heal. Children returned to school. Grocery stores reopened. Work crews installed new power poles along roads cleared of fallen trees. The debris, an estimated 851,000 cubic yards of it, was gradually collected and removed, though the scars on the landscape would remain for years. The storms changed the islands forever. The population declined as many residents, particularly young people, left to find work and rebuild lives elsewhere. But those who stayed, those who chose to remain on these islands they love, demonstrated a resilience as deep and enduring as the volcanic bedrock beneath their feet. And so the islands persist, battered but not broken, carrying the memory of those September days when the sky turned dark and the wind howled with a voice like the end of the world. The trade winds blow again now, gentle and constant. The palm trees have grown back. The coral reefs, damaged but alive, are slowly regenerating. And through it all, the sea continues its eternal rhythm, waves rolling in from the Atlantic, touching these ancient shores just as they have for millions of years, just as they will for millions more. Let yourself drift now, like a boat floating on calm waters, and turn your mind toward Buck Island, a small jewel lying just 1.5 miles off the northeast coast of St. Croix. This tiny island, only 1 mile long and 1/4 mile wide, encompassing 176 acres of land, holds within its boundaries something extraordinary, one of the finest marine gardens in the entire Caribbean Sea. The story of Buck Island's protection began in 1948, when the government of the Virgin Islands recognized that these coral reefs and sandy beaches needed safeguarding. They established the island and its surrounding waters as a protected territorial park. But it was a young marine biologist named Dr. John Randall from the University of Miami, whose documentation of the area's remarkable biodiversity convinced the federal government to act. His passionate advocacy led President John F. Kennedy to proclaim Buck Island Reef a national monument on December 5, 1961, making it part of the national park system. The monument initially protected approximately 850 acres. But 40 years later, in 2001, President Bill Clinton dramatically expanded its boundaries to encompass approximately 19,015 acres, the 176-acre island itself, plus 18,839 acres of submerged lands. This expansion was controversial, opposed by local fishermen who worried about losing access to traditional fishing grounds, but it ensured that the entire reef ecosystem would remain protected for future generations. What makes Buck Island so special lies beneath the waves. An Elkhorn coral barrier reef, one of the Caribbean's last healthy examples of this threatened species, surrounds 2/3 of the island. This reef stretches for 4,554 acres, creating a lagoon between the island and the open sea. The Elkhorn coral grows in massive branching formations that look like antlers, creating fortress-like walls and deep grottos where light filters down in shimmering rays. Within this underwater kingdom live more than 250 species of fish, parrotfish grazing on algae, angelfish drifting past sea fans, spotted eagle rays gliding like ghosts through the blue, nurse sharks resting in sandy patches, and both lemon sharks and juvenile blacktip and whitetip reef sharks patrolling the deeper waters. For snorkelers and divers, Buck Island offers something truly unique: an underwater trail, one of only 3 such trails in all of the United States. Markers along the trail point out coral formations, identify fish species, and guide visitors through a coral-lined cave before emerging at the edge of the barrier reef where the shallow lagoon drops away into the deep blue. It's like hiking a nature trail, except you're floating weightless through liquid turquoise, surrounded by creatures that pay you little mind as they go about their eternal routines. Above the waterline, Buck Island serves as crucial nesting habitat for endangered and threatened sea turtles. West Beach, on the island's leeward side, is one of the most active turtle nesting beaches in the world. For over 30 years, researchers have monitored hawksbill turtles, critically endangered worldwide, as well as leatherback, green, and loggerhead turtles that come ashore to dig nests and lay their eggs in the warm sand. The National Park Service has maintained one of the longest continually operating sea turtle research programs anywhere, gathering data that helps scientists understand these ancient mariners and work to ensure their survival. The island is also one of the few places in the Virgin Islands where brown pelicans and threatened least terns successfully nest. You can watch pelicans plunge diving into the surf, folding their wings and hitting the water like feathered missiles, emerging with fish clasped in their enormous throat pouches. The least terns, small, delicate seabirds with black caps and orange legs, nest on the beaches in summer, their high-pitched calls filling the air as they defend their eggs and chicks from intruders. Visitors can only reach Buck Island by authorized tour boat or private vessel with a permit. No one lives on the island, and there are no facilities. Most people come on half-day tours that depart from Green Cay Marina or Christiansted Harbor, taking about an hour to reach the island. The boats anchor in the turquoise lagoon, and passengers spend hours snorkeling the underwater trail or lounging on Turtle Beach, where the sand is so white it almost hurts your eyes and the water transitions through every shade of blue imaginable. For those who want to explore above water, a nature trail winds through the island's recovering dry subtropical forest, climbing to an observation platform at the island's highest point, where you can see St. Croix to the south and the British Virgin Islands shimmering on the northern horizon. Now, as you float in these peaceful thoughts of coral gardens and sea turtles, let me tell you about one of the most surprising things about driving in the Virgin Islands. The United States Virgin Islands is the only place under United States jurisdiction where cars drive on the left side of the road. Think about that for a moment. Every state, every other territory, from Maine to Hawaii, from Guam to Puerto Rico, drives on the right. But here, on these small Caribbean islands, everyone keeps left. This curious tradition traces back to the island's colonial past. When Denmark controlled the islands, and when British merchants and planters wielded significant influence over trade and commerce, left-side driving was the established custom. It may have originated even earlier, in the days of horse and cart, when keeping left allowed right-handed drivers to better control their animals and defend themselves if necessary. When the United States purchased the islands in 1917, there was no push to change this deeply ingrained habit. The local population was already accustomed to driving on the left, and the infrastructure, narrow, winding roads carved into hillsides, would have made any transition difficult and expensive. Here's where it gets truly unique. While the Virgin Islands drive on the left, virtually all the vehicles are imported from the mainland United States, which means the steering wheel is on the left side of the car, just as it would be in New York or California. So drivers sit on the left side of the car while driving on the left side of the road. This is essentially unique to the Virgin Islands. Every other place in the world that drives on the left, from the United Kingdom to Japan to Australia, has the steering wheel on the right side of the vehicle. Virgin Islanders have adapted to this unusual arrangement, developing a simple rule of thumb: keep your shoulder to the shoulder, meaning the driver's left shoulder should stay near the road's left edge. The Virgin Islands have approximately 1,240 miles of roadways, about 750 miles of public roads, and 490 miles of private roads. Most public roads are 2 lanes, paved with asphalt or concrete, often without shoulders. The terrain makes driving challenging even for locals. Roads are narrow, steep, and full of sharp turns. Potholes appear after every heavy rain. Signage can be sporadic. And then there are the animals. Chickens wandering everywhere, iguanas crossing at their leisure, mongoose darting across the pavement, and on St. John, donkeys standing thoughtfully in the middle of the road, considering their options while traffic politely waits. For visitors, adapting to left-side driving takes a few minutes but becomes second nature surprisingly quickly. Rental car companies place reminder stickers on windshields: keep left. Popular tourist maps include the same reminder. Road signs in resort areas helpfully repeat the message. Roundabouts, there are a few scattered across the islands. Go clockwise instead of counterclockwise, which can make your head spin at first. And right turns, which would be simple in the mainland United States, become more complex here because they cross the entire road into oncoming traffic. The horn etiquette is charmingly different, too. A quick beep or double beep means thank you or hello. A driver thanking you for letting them merge, or greeting a friend they recognize. A longer honk at blind corners warns oncoming traffic. Extended honking is rare, usually reserved for large delivery trucks announcing their presence on narrow mountain roads, or the occasional expression of driver frustration that happens anywhere in the world where humans and automobiles share space. And so the islands maintain this quirk of history, this reminder that they chart their own course even within the American family. Visitors arrive and adapt, locals smile at the confusion, and everyone eventually finds their rhythm. Keeping left, driving slowly, waving thanks, and stopping without complaint when a chicken decides the middle of the road is the perfect place to peck for seeds in the afternoon sun. Let your mind drift now like a pelican gliding on warm updrafts, and turn your thoughts to the remarkable people who have called these islands home, whose voices and talents have echoed far beyond these turquoise shores. Among the most distinguished figures from the Virgin Islands was Alexander Hamilton, one of America's founding fathers and the nation's first Secretary of the Treasury. Though born on the island of Nevis in 1755, Hamilton spent much of his formative youth on St. Croix. Here, as a young clerk working at a trading company, he demonstrated such remarkable intelligence and writing ability that local businessmen raised funds to send him to the American colonies for education. From these Caribbean beginnings, Hamilton would go on to shape American financial policy, write much of the Federalist Papers, and leave an indelible mark on the young nation's founding. His story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the smallest islands, that brilliance knows no boundaries of geography or circumstance. Another towering figure from Virgin Islands history was Camille Pissarro. Born on St. Thomas in 1830, Pissarro would become one of the founding fathers of French Impressionism, his paintings of rural French landscapes and Parisian streets helping to revolutionize 19th-century art. Growing up in the Danish West Indies gave him a unique perspective on light and color, the brilliant Caribbean sun, the interplay of shadow and illumination on whitewashed buildings, the vibrant hues of tropical flowers. Though he spent most of his artistic life in France, that Caribbean light never entirely left his vision. His work now hangs in museums around the world, a testament to the artistic genius that can flourish even in the most unlikely places. In more recent times, the islands have produced exceptional athletic talent. NBA legend Tim Duncan was born on St. Croix in 1976 and grew up there. Though he didn't initially dream of basketball stardom, he was actually a competitive swimmer until Hurricane Hugo destroyed the island's only Olympic-sized pool in 1989. Forced to find a new sport, Duncan discovered basketball at age 14 and within a few years had developed into one of the game's all-time greats. Over his 19-year career with the San Antonio Spurs, Duncan won 5 NBA championships and earned the nickname the Big Fundamental for his technically perfect, unflashy style of play. He's widely considered one of the greatest power forwards in basketball history, and he never forgot his island roots. Even at the height of his fame, he remained humble and grounded, qualities many attribute to his Caribbean upbringing. The entertainment world has also felt the Virgin Islands' influence. Kelsey Grammer, the Emmy Award-winning actor best known for his portrayal of Dr. Frasier Crane on the television shows Cheers and Frasier, was born on St. Thomas in 1955. Though his family moved to New Jersey when he was young, those early years on the island formed part of his identity. Grammer went on to become one of television's most celebrated actors, winning 5 Emmy Awards and 3 Golden Globes for his iconic role as the pompous but lovable psychiatrist. The music that flows from these islands has touched souls around the world. John Lucian, born Lucian Harrigan on Tortola in 1942 and raised on St. Thomas, possessed a smooth baritone voice that drew comparisons to Nat King Cole and Lou Rawls. His song, Rashida, released in 1973, earned Grammy nominations and became a classic of jazz and soul music. Lucian's music blended Caribbean rhythms with American jazz in ways that felt effortless and natural, his voice carrying the warmth of tropical breezes and the depth of ocean currents. He passed away in 2007, but his music continues to play on jazz stations and in the hearts of those who understand that true artistry transcends boundaries. In the realm of public service and advocacy, the Virgin Islands have produced leaders who fought tirelessly for justice and dignity. David Hamilton Jackson, known as D. Hamilton Jackson, was born on St. Croix in 1884. He became a journalist, labor leader, attorney, and judge who dedicated his life to improving conditions for working people in the islands. In 1915, he established the first labor union in the Virgin Islands and fought for freedom of the press. His tireless advocacy led to significant improvements in labor rights and civil liberties. Today, his birthday, November 1st, is celebrated as a public holiday in the Virgin Islands called Liberty Day, honoring his contributions to freedom and justice. Now, let your thoughts settle on the symbols of these islands, the flags and emblems that represent their identity and aspirations. The flag of the United States Virgin Islands tells a story in its design. Adopted on May 17, 1921, it features a white field with a golden American eagle at its center, flanked by the blue letters V and I, standing for Virgin Islands. The eagle grasps an olive branch in its right talon, symbolizing peace, and 3 blue arrows in its left talon, representing the 3 major islands: St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. A shield with a blue top and alternating red and white stripes rests on the eagle's breast, connecting the islands visually to the United States flag itself. The flag's creation involved Governor Sumner Ely Wetmore Kidell, who took office in April 1921 and immediately saw the need for the islands to have their own distinctive flag. He approached Percival Wilson Sparks, a cartoonist and yeoman, who quickly sketched a design on paper. Sparks then transferred his drawing onto heavy cotton material, and his wife Grace Sparks, along with her sister Blanche Joseph, embroidered the design by hand. Their handiwork became the official flag just weeks later, and it has represented the United States Virgin Islands ever since, over 100 years of continuous use. The official coat of arms of the United States Virgin Islands, adopted much more recently on January 1, 1991, was designed by Michelin E. Davis Sr. This seal features the 3 main islands prominently displayed, along with both the flag of the United States and the flag of Denmark, acknowledging the island's dual heritage. At the center perches the bananaquit, that cheerful yellow-breasted bird known locally as the sugar bird, which serves as the national bird. A ribbon bearing the territorial motto wraps around the design, "United in pride and hope." These words capture the spirit of a people who have weathered centuries of change, who have absorbed influences from 7 different flags and multiple cultures, yet have forged a distinct identity all their own. In the British Virgin Islands, the symbolism runs even deeper into history. Their coat of arms, granted by royal warrant on November 15, 1960, features a green shield bearing the image of Saint Ursula herself, the legendary 4th century leader after whom Columbus named these islands. She appears in a white dress and golden sandals, holding a lit golden oil lamp, surrounded by 11 other golden lamps, representing her 11,000 virgin companions. Below the shield, a ribbon bears the Latin motto Vigilate, be vigilant. This coat of arms, dating conceptually to the early 19th century, appears on the British Virgin Islands flag, which is a blue ensign, the British maritime flag, with the coat of arms prominently displayed. The flag was modified in 1999 when the shield was enlarged and outlined in white for better visibility. These flags and emblems are more than mere symbols. They are visual poetry, condensed history, aspirations made tangible. When a Virgin Islander sees their flag flying in the breeze, they see Alexander Hamilton's ambition, Camille Pissarro's artistic vision, Tim Duncan's determination, John Lucian's soulful voice, and D. Hamilton Jackson's fight for justice. They see 3 arrows representing 3 islands, but also 3 centuries of resilience. They see an eagle and an olive branch, but also the hope that peace and prosperity will continue to flourish in these islands that have known so much struggle and transformation. And so the flags wave in the trade winds, fabric dancing against blue sky, colors bright in the tropical sun. White for clouds, blue for water, green for hills, yellow for flowers, and gold for the enduring spirit of a people who have made these volcanic peaks their home, who have transformed a scattered archipelago into a community bound together by shared history, shared pride, and shared hope for all the tomorrows still to come. Let the images of flags and emblems fade gently away. Breathe slowly and deeply, and now turn your mind toward the living waters that surround these islands, toward the coral gardens that have grown here for thousands of years, building themselves grain by grain into vast underwater cities of color and life. Picture yourself floating weightlessly above a coral reef. Below you stretches nearly 300 square kilometers, that's 297.9 square kilometers, to be precise, of coral reef and hard bottom habitat spread across the waters between St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. This is not just rock and sand, but living architecture built by billions of tiny polyps, each no larger than a pinhead, working together across millennia to create structures that rival anything humans have ever constructed. More than 40 species of stony corals, scientifically known as scleractinian corals, thrive in these waters, along with 3 species of fire coral from the genus Melepora. Each species has its own growth pattern, its own preference for depth and current and light. Brain corals form massive rounded domes that can live for centuries, their surfaces covered with meandering valleys that truly resemble the convolutions of a human brain. Elkhorn coral grows in massive branching formations like the antlers of a great stag. Staghorn coral creates dense thickets where small fish hide from predators. Pillar corals rise like ancient columns toward the surface, their polyps extending during the day to feed on microscopic plankton drifting past in the current. These reefs are not merely beautiful, they are essential. The protective services provided by intact coral reefs deliver $47 million in annual flood protection benefits to the U.S. Virgin Islands in the form of averted damages to property and economic activities. The reefs act as natural breakwaters, absorbing wave energy during storms and protecting fragile coastlines from erosion. Without them, every hurricane would cause far more damage. Every high tide would eat away more beach. Every storm surge would push deeper inland. But these underwater kingdoms face mounting challenges. The 2020 Coral Reef Condition Report rated the Virgin Islands reefs as fair. Not excellent, not good, but fair, a middle ground that could tip either toward recovery or decline. The corals experience diseases with ominous names. Black band disease that kills major reef-building corals, white band disease that has devastated elkhorn and staghorn populations, white plague disease that can kill entire colonies in weeks, and most recently, stony coral tissue loss disease, first noted on St. Thomas in 2019, spreading like wildfire through the Caribbean. Climate change brings rising temperatures that stress the corals, causing bleaching events where the symbiotic algae that give corals their color and much of their food abandon their hosts, leaving behind white calcium carbonate skeletons. If conditions improve quickly, the algae can return and the coral survives. But if stress continues, the coral starves and dies. The branching elkhorn and staghorn corals have been influenced the most by elevated sea temperatures that lead to bleaching and mortality. Yet hope persists in these waters. Conservation organizations work tirelessly to restore damaged reefs. On St. Croix's East End Marine Park, restoration initiatives span more than 90 acres of reef area, one of the largest coral restoration projects in the insular Caribbean. Scientists and volunteers grow coral fragments in underwater nurseries and land-based facilities, using innovative techniques that dramatically increase growth rates and preserve genetic diversity. Once the corals reach appropriate size, divers attach them to damaged reefs using cement or underwater epoxy, giving the reef a second chance at life. Now let your thoughts drift upward, from the cool depths to the warm surface, from underwater gardens to the endless sky above. Feel the breeze on your skin, those eternal trade winds that have shaped life on these islands for as long as humans have lived here. The climate throughout the Virgin Islands is tropical, with temperatures typically varying from 74 degrees Fahrenheit to 89 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. Think about that constancy. While people in northern latitudes endure bitter winters and sweltering summers, the Virgin Islands exist in a state of perpetual warmth, temperatures fluctuating only about 15 degrees across the entire year. In Charlotte-Amalie, the capital on St. Thomas, average temperatures range from around 79 degrees Fahrenheit from January to March to around 84 degrees Fahrenheit from June to September. This is not the oppressive, stagnant heat of a summer city. The trade winds, those reliable easterly breezes that blow almost constantly, moderate the temperature and keep the air moving. These winds are not mere random gusts but part of a global atmospheric circulation pattern, flowing from subtropical high-pressure zones toward the equator. The trade winds blow from the northeast in winter and shift to the southeast in summer, remaining constant and dependable. They bend the palm trees, fill the sails of boats, carry seeds from one island to another, and make life comfortable even when the sun beats down from directly overhead. Rainfall in Charlotte-Amalie totals about 1,050 millimeters per year, roughly 41 inches. This might sound like a lot to someone from the American Southwest, but for a tropical location, it's actually quite modest. Some Caribbean islands receive twice that amount. The only period when rainfall consistently exceeds 100 millimeters per month is from August to November. The wettest months bring brief afternoon thunderstorms. Clouds build through the morning. The sky darkens around 2 or 3 o'clock. Rain falls in sheets for 20 or 30 minutes. And then the sun emerges again, steam rising from hot pavement, everything washed clean and green. The driest months are February and March, when the islands bask under nearly cloudless skies day after day. This is the peak tourist season, when visitors from cold climates escape to these shores seeking warmth and sunshine. The weather during these months is nearly perfect. Warm but not hot, dry but not parched, with gentle breezes and calm seas. The ocean surrounding the islands maintains a temperature as constant as the air. Sea temperatures are around 79 degrees Fahrenheit in February and March, and rise to around 84 degrees Fahrenheit in September and October. You can swim comfortably any day of the year, any month, without ever encountering water that feels cold. Snorkelers and divers explore the reefs in shorts and rash guards, rarely needing wetsuits except perhaps in the deepest dives. But this paradise is not without its dangers. From June to November, the danger of tropical storms and hurricanes threatens the region, with the greatest probability occurring from August to October. These are the months when the ocean temperature reaches its peak, when the sea holds enough energy to fuel massive rotating storm systems that can grow into hurricanes. The Atlantic hurricane belt runs directly through the Virgin Islands. Most years pass without a direct hit, but when the storms do come, they come with devastating force, as Hurricane Hugo demonstrated in 1989, as Hurricanes Marilyn showed in 1995, and as Irma and Maria proved so catastrophically in 2017. Despite this risk, or perhaps because of it, Virgin Islanders have developed a deep understanding of their climate, reading the sky and sea with practiced eyes, knowing when to secure their boats and board their windows, knowing when to relax and enjoy another perfect day. They live in harmony with patterns established over millennia: the dry season and wet season, the calm months and hurricane months, the northeast trades of winter and southeast trades of summer, the rhythm of tropical life under Caribbean sun. And so the trade winds continue their eternal flow, bending the sea grape trees along the beach, filling the air with the scent of salt and flowers, cooling the skin of everyone who stands beneath that brilliant blue sky. The sun rises each morning over the Atlantic, arcs across the heavens, and sets into the Caribbean Sea, day after day after day, in a cycle as old as the islands themselves, as endless as the waves that roll onto these ancient shores. Let your thoughts drift away from the natural world now and settle on the handmade world, the world of stone and brick and mortar, the architectural legacy that centuries of human habitation have left upon these volcanic islands. Picture yourself standing on the National Register of Historic Places. Not a plaque, but dozens of them scattered across these 3 islands like jewels dropped from heaven. There are currently 91 sites listed on the National Register spread across 16 of the 20 subdistricts within the Virgin Islands. These aren't just buildings. They are stories rendered in stone, memories preserved in brick, history you can touch with your own hands. 4 of these sites have been elevated to an even more prestigious designation: National Historic Landmarks, places of exceptional significance to the entire nation.